Germany has elected itself into oblivion. This is nothing new. The election yesterday is a continuation of a trend that, in my opinion, is very concerning for a couple of reasons. Let me dissect first the technicalities of why this is concerning, and then give a broader perspective on why we care about it at Orange Capital Partners, and also why I think it's worth listening to comments like this, because it does affect more than just political geeks in Europe. So first, let's talk about the election itself. So Germany has a proportional system of elections. So that means that parties can put themselves on the ballot, and if they get more than 5%, they go to the parliament. The parliament then decides who runs the country. In other words, if you have a majority or if you're the largest party, you tend to become the party that runs the chancellorship or like the presidency, if you will. And then they, if they don't have a 50% majority in the parliament, then they need to do coalitions. So this is kind of the system in Germany. And I think partly that's the problem of the system. I'm not a big fan of the proportional system, but let's put that aside for a second. So what happened yesterday in the election is that we had sort of a no-win situation where one party, the CDU, the Christlich-Demokratische Union, together with the Christlich-Soziale Union, CSU from Bayern, together they get about 28% of the vote. The second largest party is the AfD, which is, I believe, the only party in Germany that has the potential to lead the country and Europe into onto a better path. And then we have all the other parties that have been around for a while, and in my opinion, have really, added to the detriment of Germany and Europe, such as the socialists and also the Green. There's one party which has grown, which is the left. I don't know much about them, and I also don't want to comment too much on them. But I think fundamentally what's going on in Germany is that the middle class, the center, is being hollowed out by economic forces, and I think also by lack of values, like the values that supposedly the elite is trying to sell to people, such as some sort of tolerance and a woke style, happy-go-lucky, capitalism-ish, socialism-ish governance. That people aren't buying into it because it doesn't work. So what we're seeing is a bifurcation. We're seeing more, people going, rightfully so, to the AfD, which again really is a party with common sense, solution-driven policies. Not everything is perfect there. I'm not a big fan of Alice Weidel, the actual head of the party, but that's okay. I mean, she's human. Everybody's human there, and mistakes are made. But fundamentally, I think the programs and the solutions that are offered make sense, versus again the middle side, all these parties that have been running the country for the last 50 years, ever since World War II, in my opinion, they just don't have solutions, because they are sort of embedded in this elitist ideological almost dream state, or there's a concept that came from the Merkel years in Germany. They call it Schlafwagenpolitik, which is sort of this sleepwalking type policy where we just hope things will be fine, and we don't really do much. We don't do the hard things. We don't actually solve problems, and we just keep distributing wealth, kind of like what Elon Musk said happened in the United States, where everything was going one way. Wealth was going away from future generations into more and more pockets, because the future generations don't have a voice, and the pockets, of course, wouldn't complain. And now we're reversing that in the US, so we have a lot of pushback, of course. We're cutting, we're firing people, we're going for efficiency. People are upset, but that's okay, it needs to be done. And in Europe, that is not happening, and particularly not in Germany. And I think this vote, unfortunately, was a confirmation of that fear, that people aren't just, it's not happening. Now, some of it is technical, just because of this proportionality thing. I'm going to discuss that a bit, but I think I also feel like that Germany is fundamentally, I think, still caught in a post-World War II guilt trip. And I think Germany just needs to emancipate itself. It needs to stand up and needs to follow what, I think it was a Polish person, actually, some politician, who said, only one thing is worse than Germany leading, which is a Germany not leading. Like what's required in Germany and in Europe is a strong leading Germany under, of course, all the fundamental values of Western civilization. So I'm not talking about any kind of fascism or anything like that. You know, I have nothing to do with that. But we need leadership, and I think the AfD is, in that context, a party that is offering a middle-class driven, value-driven leadership. And if we don't give them more power now, I think it's only going to get worse, and we actually might end up in a more extreme left-right kind of 1930s type situation. This is not even on podcast. It's February 24, 2025. This is Krimdelko. For the year, we are down 16%. The market is up 2.5%. We're underperforming by 18.5%. Just before I go into the discussion, I think we're unfortunately still suffering through a sell-off in Tesla shares. I think there's two reasons why Tesla is selling off. One is there has been a massive run after the Trump election. I think there's some correction there, and then we have a relatively disappointing Q1 to be expected in terms of sales. I think there is definitely an Osborne effect from the Model Y, and also a little bit of a political effect on top of that, coming from people, being upset at Elon Musk in the United States and in Europe. But I think that given the drivers that we have, Model Y Juniper is an amazing product which will proliferate itself to the best-selling car in the world and keep growing. We believe that autonomy is a great is a great driver, and the launch of Cybercab, the launch of these types of products, the fundamental idea of having self-driving cars going forward as a tool for transportation. I think all of these drivers are massive wealth-creating drivers. I also think that actually what Doge is doing and Musk is doing is going to help tech stocks, and particularly productivity-driven growth stocks like Tesla. Once we cut the waste, we've spoken about this before. Like when you cut waste in the government, you have a positive spillover effect onto the economy. The same way that corruption and waste has a negative spillover effect, which could be, I don't know. I mean, probably economists should do some math on this, but it could be 5 to 10x. So if you cut $1 of waste in the government, I think you create $10 of value, because you're not just cutting the $1 of waste, you're cutting all the spillover effects of that waste, the regulations, the people opposing innovation because they want that waste to continue. So once you remove all of that, I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for real economic growth. We side with ARK Invest's Cathy Wood on that side. Now let's get to the conversation of this topic, which is the German election. Why do we care about the German election? We're large investors in Tesla, but we also are, generally invested in productivity growth around the world. So what we want as Orange Capital Partners is we want a peaceful world where people go to work, make money, and generate wealth. And they do that with technological innovations. That's the way we see the world. Again, there are other scenarios. We have World War III scenario. We have a scenario where there's some sort of socialism globally, like we almost were on the brink of that during the Biden years, where everything becomes woke and socialist, and progress halts, and we start, bickering about, race, and racism comes back, and all of these things. Those are different scenarios under which we won't do well as a fund. So our fund requires this framework of growth, productivity. People go to school, learn stuff, go to work somewhere, and apply this knowledge to the benefit of their company, and hopefully the products and services that their companies produce apply themselves to the benefit of humanity. That's the way we see the world, and we don't influence that in any shape or form. So I just want to put that out there for all the people who might be questioning maybe sometimes why we are so highly concentrated and why we are so positive about the world. It comes with the trade, right? So having said that, now we have large positions in Tesla and Nvidia, and particularly Tesla, of course, is exposed to Europe. But I think Europe is a large market, is as big as the United States. GDP-wise, maybe it's not as big, but wealth-wise, it's big, and there's a lot of interesting people there, a lot of interesting things to do. So it would be a shame if Europe really declines into oblivion. Now, having said that, we believe that Germany is the driving force for Europe for several reasons. One is economic, the other is also just geographic and size-wise, and we need a strong Germany as a leader. France cannot take that role. The UK doesn't want to take that role, cannot take that role for various reasons. Russia, of course, is not even part of Europe at this point. So for Russia to become a big positive player in Europe, we first need some sort of reconciliation. So that's going to take a long time. So we need leadership within Europe from Germany. That's why we care so much about these elections. And we believe, we're of the belief here in Orange Capital Partners, that AfD and Alice Weidel's party are actually a good solution for that. It's like I said, they're not perfect. There's things that I would definitely do differently there. Particularly, I would, kind of curb the extreme right wing there, and I would also try to be a little bit more, maybe, let's say, economically driven. Have clear answers to questions such as the euro, questions such as the German car industry, things like that. Be much more clear. Be much more transparent. Follow the lead of the United States. I think what the boys around Trump, boys and gals, excuse me, are doing around Trump is just amazing. In a sense, let's say if you look at Pete Haskett, who is on TV almost every day, transparently explaining what he's doing. Musk, of course, is explaining what he's doing with Doge. We have other people in the cabinet being very vocal and very transparent and very clear about what they want to do. And I think that's the path forward. We want to cut government to the most efficient, most not as small as possible, but as efficient as possible to serve the people, to get to better results for everybody. It's the most fair, it's the most prosperous, it's the most interesting outcome that we could think of. And I think Germany could follow that lead, and I think Alice Weidel is willing to follow that lead, of course, in her way, in her German approximated way. And unfortunately, she only got 21% of the vote, which is great. They're very happy. They doubled their vote from last time and all of that. But we were hoping that the Trump effect and the halo effect, and also the frustration of this post-COVID Vogue virus that has infected Germany, actually more than even the United States for some reason, that will proliferate this party to power. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened again. They only got 21%. Now, the others, the other conservative parties, say that you got 28. So you could think together they could be running the country on a conservative, maybe less aggressive, but more, still conservative towards values, Western values, away from wokeism, relativism, and all that nonsense. And unfortunately, the potential new chancellor, Friedrich Merz, has made it clear that he doesn't want to work with AfD. And that is, in my opinion, the death sentence for Germany and this upcoming government and the next years until we have a re-election. Because if they don't work with AfD, they're going to have to work with the socialists and the Greens. And that's what we actually had the last 4 years. So what Germany is on the brink of doing right now, I think as an unforced error, is actually doing. Imagine the United States now being run by Kamala Harris and the Biden people for another 4 years. I think it would be an utter disaster for the economy and for the prosperity and the future generations. I'm not even talking about actual realpolitik on the day. I'm just talking about for anybody who is invested in the future of their country or the world. This would be a disaster. So fortunately, we are not doing that here in the United States, but Germany, unfortunately, is doing that. And with that, I think we should expect also Europe to just slither furthermore into oblivion, economic oblivion and political oblivion, because there won't be any consensus and there won't be any leadership. So there's two problems here. One is you don't have a consensus. Merz and the socialists and the Greens will not find consensus on almost anything. So what they're going to do is they're going to do like anybody's ever been on a board meeting, let's say maybe not in a high growth company, but any other like situation or those types of meetings. Let's say I've been on boards of schools and things like that. When you just sit there and everything is transactional and nobody fights for anything, nobody argues, nobody contradicts. It's just, whatever, yeah. So that's how it's going to be. And we're just going to have a continuation of this Schlafwagenpolitik or the sleepwalking policy that Merkel has introduced into Germany 20 years ago, and that's not going to work, because the forces right now, the political and the economic forces of Germany and Europe, again, when I say Germany, I really mean Europe. It's the same thing in a sense. I don't mean this with any disrespect to other European countries, but you just need a strong leadership from Germany. So when I say Germany is going into oblivion, it is almost equivalent to Europe going into oblivion. But let's stick with Germany now. So Germany is going into oblivion because there won't be any consensus. And with that, there's no leadership. Because no matter how well-intentioned you are, imagine you're sitting on a board with, let's say, 5, 6 people, and you really want to do things. And when I say do things, typically in an organization with people, it means doing hard things. It's like, Ben Horowitz's book, asking the hard questions about the hard things, or something along those lines. Real progress is made when hard questions are asked, when difficult questions and difficult answers are given. Like, that's when real progress happens. And yeah, sometimes it hurts. It's like your health, right? When you're sick, you gotta go to the doctor, and maybe you gotta even go under the knife, and it hurts in the beginning, and it's really uncomfortable, but long term it's good. Or when you go to the gym, and you might not be super excited about the stationary bike, but over time it's going to improve your health, and so on and so forth. So what I'm saying here is that we're not going to get this in Germany now. And it's really unfortunate, I think, because I'm a big fan of Germany. I'm a big fan of their industrial ingenuity, the individuals that I've met I grew up in Switzerland, so many capable people, so much interesting political thought. Female emancipation was driven in Germany even before anywhere else. The challenge between a secular state and the Christianity that is still strong in Germany has been, I think, really well done. So they've done a few really good things. They've suggested some interesting ideas when it comes to energy, although then they made a huge mistake with shutting down their nuclear power and going all the way with the gas of Russia. So that was a mistake. But overall, there's some interesting, I think the way they invest in renewables is a good thing, but it has to be done, of course, in conjunction with other technological mixes and all those things. So anyway, I'm a big fan of Germany, and I'm saddened that they're not able to get out of their own way. So to conclude, our comments on this election is Germany have voted themselves into oblivion. To some extent, it's technical because of this proportionality. So what we expect now is another few years, probably not 4 years, of just really leaderless, sort of, step by step, going slowly into oblivion type of policy. I think more extreme on the right and the left, and then in the next election cycle, we'll probably see a much stronger AfD, and probably also more extreme AfD, and that's really the sad thing. I think right now, Alice Weidel's party it's a conservative, middle class driven democratic party that just wants the voice of the people to be expressed in policy. What she's trying to do is what Trump is trying to do in her German way, of course, which is really just transfer what people want into policy. People don't want too many immigrants. They don't want economic stagnation. They don't want waste in the government. They don't want regulation, all of these things. They want free speech in Germany. Germany doesn't have free speech right now, as J.D. Vance said. All of these things. Now, there are some, things that they are talking about that I don't agree with. Such as, for example, the sort of disrespect that they sometimes show towards immigrants. I think they're still humans, and we have to treat them in a human way and in a legal way. And that's sometimes maybe kind of lost in translation there. But again, I think overall the party is absolutely on the right path. And it would have been amazing if they could have taken over as a ruling party right now, as they're still in sort of a middle class, embedded, Western values embedded structure. If we have another 4 years, probably less than 4 years of oblivion, I'm expecting more extremist tendencies to take over in Germany, and therefore we might also see a more extreme AfD. Now, anyway, I don't want to make those predictions right now. I just want to say that it's unfortunate. I think we expect Europe as a whole, as an economic bloc, to stagnate. We don't expect much, let's say, for Tesla. So Tesla's going to have to compensate, which they are doing with the Middle East. I think some of the production from Berlin can be exported to the Middle East. I mean, when I say Middle East, I mean basically everything east of Turkey and the Saudi Arabian Peninsula and all of these markets. There's probably some absorption there, but we're going to have some trouble in I think it's called MENA, Middle East, Europe, kind of that area. It's not going to be growing as fast as we think, because the economic forces are just weak, and they are weak because there is a lack of leadership in the strongest economy and therefore also in the whole continent, and that's going to backfire on prosperity. The solution to that, again, would be, just as a last point, if the strongest party, CDU, combined with AfD and created a strong middle class, Western values driven conservative government, then I think with clear leadership and clear solutions to some of the pressing problems politically and economically, then I think that would be amazing. But CDU said they don't want to do that, so therefore we don't expect it. Thank you.